Don't miss these 6 super important things to be looking for on the exterior of a home if you are out house hunting. Hey there, it is Lesley Perreault with Wichita Area Real Estate Experts and eXp Realty. And in today's video, we are going to discuss 6 things that you should always be looking for on the exterior of a house if you are looking to purchase your next property. So number one thing, I think it's the easiest thing to look for, is going to be taking a look at all of the brick. So no, not necessarily what the color is or anything like that, but you're going to want to be checking the mortar lines. So typically there's a lot of movement and you're going to be noticing it up in the areas that are above the doors, around the windows, things like that. Sometimes these things have already been fixed, so you can notice a difference in the color of the mortar. Sometimes they haven't. So it's going to be a clear sign that there has been some shifting in the house. Some of the ones that I think are the most serious are the ones that run horizontally. Typically, you're going to see those at about, like if the house has a basement, at the top of that basement window. So you can start seeing if the entire wall has started to push inward and possibly could have a foundation problem on the inside. The second thing that you're going to want to look for is negative drainage. So what I mean by that is anytime that the property doesn't have positive drainage, where if it rains, the water is running away from the house. So negative drainage obviously would be the opposite of that. And the drainage would be held up against the house. So if it rains, it's going to pool the water against your house. The reason you don't want that is because that water is putting pressure on the foundation walls, could come into the basement and get your basement wet, but bigger than that, it's going to start causing the walls to shift and you're going to wind up with foundation problems. So it's always very, very important to have positive drainage. So a couple of things to look at that I've made notes of is obviously visually, you should be able to see it, but sometimes it's very slight. So some ways that you can notice it is if the concrete is stained darker or a green color, like it started to have some algae buildup, that sometimes is a true indication that the water just hasn't been able to drain away fast enough and it's being held and pooled up around the foundation. The other thing that you can see is around downspouts and around the window wells of a basement. Sometimes on the sides of those basement windows, there's going to be low spots, and so that can create problems for you. The third thing is gutters, which kind of leads into the number 2 thing being drainage, but we have to make sure that the water is draining away from the house. So you want to look and see, are the downspouts, do they have the splash blocks underneath of them that are getting the water away? But you're also looking to see if it's washed out any cement, like notorious. It always happens around the side of the driveway. So if you're looking at it, they always put the downspout right there and it always drains right there at the corner of the driveway. And what happens is the driveway winds up sinking because the dirt has been washed out. So then you have $1,000+ issue, all because water has washed away the dirt that was underneath of that cement slab. So something else that you can look at as far as gutters go to see if they're working properly without actually getting up on a roof and looking at them. One, you can see if they have their own garden growing in them. A lot of times during the spring and during the fall, they've had so many leaves and it's composted into that gutter that now you're seeing things growing out of the gutters. That's not a good sign. Another bad sign, if you're looking at gutters and you're seeing a whole bunch of like streaking, dark, gray streaking down the fronts of the gutters, they're not draining properly. So what's happening is all of the rain is washing down the roof and it's totally bypassing the gutter and it's running down the front of the gutter and not draining out the downspouts the way that it should properly. Another indication of that is if you look at the ground right underneath of that gutter, you're going to see an indentation in the dirt, if it's dirt, showing that streak where all of the water has been hitting the dirt. So the number 4 thing that you should be looking for on the outside of a house is siding. So if it's not an all brick home and they've put up siding, there's a lot of different types of siding. But a couple of things that you're going to want to look for, doesn't matter what the type of siding, unless it's vinyl, if you can see nails and where it's been nailed into the side of the house, you're going to want to look around there and see if it looks puffy around any of those nails. Because what happens is a lot of times, even when they're being built, the installers drive the nails too deep down inside, and then it gets caulked that one time when they get it painted, and then after that, it's not waterproof anymore. So water continues to come inside of that siding. One place on a house that's always notorious, and it's really easy to tell if this is an issue, is checking the siding on a chimney. The chimneys are almost always the very first places that seem to have the most deterioration on the siding. The other places that you're going to notice it is if you're pulling into the driveway. A lot of the houses here in Wichita anyway, they have your fascia boards. So fascia, face, so it's the face of that peak. And those are made out of a similar product. And where they've cut like a triangular piece that goes at the very end, you will start seeing curling on the tips of that triangular piece. Very easy indication that those are going to need to be replaced. So the number 5 thing that you should be checking out when you're looking at houses is going to be the roof. So a couple different things that you want to look at on the roof. One, you can check in those downspouts and see if you see like any of the little roof granules that are in there. A lot of times that could be hail, wind, could even be that there's not enough venting in the attic. So those granules are basically baking and popping off. And then when it rains, they get washed down the gutters and they wind up landing into the splash block. But it also could be, as you're looking up, we get a lot of hail here in Wichita during the spring. You can see little darker circles throughout the roof. That's an indication that it's got hail damage. And lastly, on the roof, you just want to look and see if you can see any missing shingles as you're out taking your lap around the house. The last thing that I want you to look at and point out is windows. So if you guys aren't familiar with what a storm window is, basically it is a metal secondary piece of glass with a screen that has been invented to go on over the top of original wood windows to give that 2 pieces of glass insulation factor. So one, if you see those, the first thing that I want you to understand about your house that you're looking at is it's the original windows, because that's not how new vinyl windows or new wood windows are constructed. So that's one of the things that you're going to be able to notice right away is it's the original windows. The other thing that you can make laps around and look for, if you're looking at a house that has newer windows, those are going to be made out of vinyl, and they usually have 2 or 3 pieces of glass that have all been like sealed. So they have a vacuum chemical inside of that, and when those seals fail, it looks very cloudy. So that's one thing you're going to have to look at, and you can just replace that section of glass and things like that. So none of these are the end of the world. It's just all something that you want to be checking out so that you have fewer surprises during your home inspection. Not one of these single things is necessarily a deal breaker, but it's just always nice to have a plan and to be prepared before you own it. So thanks for tuning in today, and have a great day.